Welcome back to Switch to Linux. So we are going to do another outdoor philosophy. And today we are going to be talking about seeing your big picture. So seeing your big picture is, in life, it's about looking at what you want to do and figuring out what you need to do to get there. And as one person, I was once reading a book, he said, he was talking about this, like a violin player or something who wanted to be a very famous violin player. And the person said, I got this way by what is it? Planned negligence. I am planning to neglect the things that do not help me in my goal. And that really is a thing, because especially as I've talked more and more in the recent weeks about letting go of some of the technology and slowing down in our life and just taking a chance to be out and about. So I'm actually out at this park here, except I'm trying to visit different parks every day. This one here is called Circleville Park, and it's several acres surrounded by woods. So there's kind of a panel of woods over here, and then there's like a little mini playground way over this way, and I want to say a bigger playground right here behind me. And then there's actually attached to some of the school fields here, and then there's some cornfields across the street over here. Kind of nice, slow, back out of the way place. But this is just a nice place to just come and sit. And I think the wind's picking up a little bit. I'm sorry about that. But part of seeing the big picture, we're still in Power of Focus, and I want to say, what is this, chapter 3? I want to say is what power, or what this guy is. Let me see, where was this? That's 4, so yeah, this would be 3. So seeing the big picture is about goal setting, and not just goal setting, but it's about setting goals, setting realistic time frames on those goals, and then figuring out what you need to do to achieve those and what you need to set aside so that you can achieve those. Because that really does make a big difference. If you're going to get out and get something done, you have to plan to do it. And part of planning to do it is planning to not do some other things. And so with all that being said, you want to look at, and what these authors identify is they look at goals in, I think, 7 different areas. And I actually added an 8th because I thought something was missing. And that's, as you're reading books and things, you want to make sure that you're not just blindly, oh, author says this, let's do this, because there's certainly some far-fetched things in here. Like they talk about this one story where this lady writes everything down on some paper, and everything that she writes down in this thing it comes exactly true, and I think that when you start taking that approach in a success type book, you start telling somebody that it's kind of like that word faith crap. It's like, if you just name it and claim it, it's all yours. And life doesn't always work that way. We get a lot of disappointments. Things don't always go well. Businesses actually fail, and it's not because of poor planning necessarily. Although a lot of times you look at business that fails, poor planning is probably part of it. Poor execution is a big part of it. But we can't just assume that just because you write everything down that you're going to automatically get it. But it increases your odds. As John Maxwell said at one time, he has this little tape called "Swing the Bat," where he's just talking. It's a lot of motivation, success motivation type stuff. But in the longer lesson called "Swing the Bat," he takes his nephew out to his baseball game, and he tells him, just swing the bat. He says, because I can tell you one thing about Little League Baseball. He says, if you swing the bat, you increase the odds of the ball hitting the bat. And that's kind of a true principle, that you want to make sure that if you don't go through life setting any goals and you plop down in front of the television day and night, or don't do anything else really meaningful, then what ends up happening is you accomplish a point in time where you're just like, you'll look back in 30 years and go, what did I do the last 30 years? That's right, 70 seasons of Game of Thrones, and that's not exactly useful. And, so what you can say is that by writing down and clearly writing down your goals and steps and things, doing what you can do to reach your goals is the critically important thing. And that's kind of what we're talking about. So I don't want to paint the picture of if you just write down your goals, your life is going to go perfect, because disappointments come. And, even in my own life, there's just been so many things that I thought would turn out quite a bit differently than they did. But that's okay. We have to deal with life in that particular manner. That's fine. But a person who's setting goals and working towards those goals is definitely way more prepared than the person who is not. And right now I have a goal of getting this phone reset, because there's a serious problem with the phone, and so I need to send it back. But I'm trying to do a factory reset, and it's stuck on the loading screen. See, life doesn't always work out. I have a specific goal. Hit the button combination, do a factory reset, reboot the phone, send it back. No, I did my factory reset. It's stuck on the login screen. No amount of goal setting is going to prepare me for a phone stuck on a login screen. Figure it out later. But here are the 7 categories that they suggest putting goals in. Financial goals, business and career, fun time goals, health and fitness, relationships, personal, and contribution goals. The one that I add to that is spiritual goals. I thought it was missing, although some people might want to clump it in under one of those other categories. But if you happen to be a person of faith, then you should have a goal to improve yourself in your faith, to study whatever books or teachings or writings or scriptures are important to your particular faith. You need to make sure you do that. But nevertheless, the execution is great, because they cover goal setting in general. And there's a lot out there in goal setting, and you can get out there and do some very simple looking up on goal setting, and you'll find a lot of interesting things. And some people set goals to lose weight. Some people set goals to stop smoking. It's usually some application to making your life better. And that's the thing, making your life better. Maybe you want to write a book. Get out there and just write. Trust me, it's not going to write itself. And the times that I write books the most and the best are the times that you specifically set out. So right now, at least 4 days a week, usually closer to 5 or 6, but 4 days a week, I have a place and an amount of time and a time in the day that I just don't let anything else really interfere with that. I go there, and it ends up being a park with like about a 5 or so minute walk from my house. So I get a coffee cup or a tea cup. I fill one of these guys up with coffee and tea. Excellent coffee. I fill one of those up with coffee or tea, and then I walk over, and it's usually in the evening, and then I park down at a bench, like a picnic bench, that's kind of like this, under a pavilion, so I can go there if it's raining too, as long as it's not like sideways, whatever. And then I sit down there for an hour, between 45 minutes and an hour, and and sometimes I'm just writing a plan, and sometimes I write 1,000 words. Sometimes I'm just asking myself pondering questions. Like, I've been stuck. The book I'm writing right now, I've just been stuck at one spot, and I'm just trying to reconcile it. I think I got over it last night. I'm pretty sure I'm there. So moving on. But at the same time, if you sit down and just decide you're going to write something, and the books that I write, they're not like nonfiction, or they're not fiction novels, more like nonfiction helpful type books. But as I'm doing those books, you want to shoot for between 35 and 50,000 words for a book like that. My first book was 35,000. That was a little short. The second book I'm working on, it's right now in kind of final drafting stages and editorial stages, is, I want to say I'm closer to 50,000 words on that one. I'd have to double check, but I think I'm close to 50,000 on that one. And then the third one I'm working on, it's probably going to be closer to the 50,000. I don't know yet. I kind of need to see how some of the chapters are going to pan out, especially since it's a collaborative effort with somebody else. See what this person's going to contribute versus what I'm going to contribute, and how we do that. In theory, we can make it a little bit better in about half the time, but I don't know. We'll see what happens. So in this, you need to set some goals, and of course they identify what is the purpose of goals, and then really, I like their checklist of goals, and this is the best book on goal setting, because it, like as I said before, doesn't just talk about how to set goals and a methodical process of writing them down, although it provides that. It gives you a whole lot of whys and reasons why. And so with that, this is why we are now talking about seeing your big picture, because your goals are more about seeing that big picture. So the first thing is that your goals must be your goals. You can't have somebody else set your goals for you. Although I do realize in our current crazy system that happens, and in a degree, if you're a young person still, that has to kind of happen because, a young person intrinsically doesn't want to get out there and say, I'm going to set some goals here to learn my mathematics and arithmetic tables so that I can go ahead better in my life. No, they might have a goal to get to the end of a video game, but whatever. And so setting your goal, but even if you are a young person, you can set a goal to say, I'm going to learn a new program. I'm going to learn a new system. I'm going to think about what I'm doing. I'm going to ask myself, what types of things might I want to be doing later on, and figure out what types of things I might need to do to cause that to happen. I'm like getting really dark. It's like, I think it's brightening up out there. When I started recording, it was actually pretty nice. And now it's really dark. So I'm like this mystical, who's this silent one speaking? I should be speaking in an anonymous voice with this. The second thing is your goals must be meaningful. Okay, your goals must be meaningful. And by that, it's like meaningful to you. We all have different things. Some of us really love sports. Some of us really love computers and tech. Some of us really love animals. Some of us really love whatever. And you have to set your goals out as something that is certainly meaningful. Not just to yourself, but to the world. The third is that your goals must be very specific and very measurable. So you can't just say, I'm going to get in better shape. You want to say, I'm going to either lose this much weight if you're overweight, or maybe if you're underweight, I want to gain this much weight. Or if you're right on target, you want to say, I want to maintain my current weight. And then add the measurement. So it's not just enough to say, well, I'm going to do this. You want to add the measurement. What is the way you're going to measure it? And what are the specific steps you're going to do to fulfill that? So if you want to talk about losing weight, for example, I'm going to lose 20 pounds and I'm going to break that over into 6 weeks. And I'm going to do that by making sure that I'm exercising a certain amount during the day and I am engaging in these dietary practices. And we're not going to get into that. Now, fourth is your goals must be flexible. I know I said this before, and somebody really liked the quote, so I'm going to say it again. Blessed are the flexible, for they never get bent out of shape. So by what we mean by that is that you might set a goal to have a book done in a year. Suppose you miss that goal. Well, if you are still shooting for that target, even if you miss that goal, I bet you have a whole lot more done than if you were sitting on the couch one day and the TV's going and you're like, I want to write a book. And then you don't do anything about it. 1 year later, that book is still possibly floating around in your mind if it hasn't atrophied itself to death, but you're not any closer. So by being flexible, what you can do is you can figure out and you can learn that sometimes your goals do not get met exactly when you want, and sometimes you just have to extend something out or take a couple more steps. All right. And then, of course, your goals must be in alignment with your values. This is important. The application they use is, suppose you want to make a whole lot of money, and a friend of yours comes up to you and says, hey, I got a great way we can make all that money. Let's go rob a bank. No. So, part of making all that money, you have to make sure it's aligned with your goals. Now, if your goals and your values say that robbing a bank is okay, please go talk to the police first. I'd really like you to do that. We don't need more criminals on the street. That'd be bad. Okay. 7 is your goals must be well balanced. And this gets back to that area of balance. So what types of goals? Well, goals for health, goals for finances, goals, all these things. But you want to keep a level of balance. You don't want to have goals to have 15 different books written, but you're not making any money in the meantime. You have to set some goals on all these different areas. All right, so next is your goals must be realistic. If your goal is to save $1 million, you're not going to get that way in a couple weeks at Burger King. But you can begin to start making steps. You can add some realisticness to it. Strong wind gust. Sorry about that. You can make some strong, realistic things part of your goals. And then, of course, your goals must include some contribution. This means contribution to society. You can't just go around seeking your goals to get everything for yourself. You have to learn to give back. So giving back is such an important part of life. In fact, that, as that one statement says, blessed are those who give more than those who receive. And that's kind of a principle there. And then, of course, your goals need to be supported. So they identify 3 different areas. One thing is you can tell the whole world about your goals and see what chips fall. The second is you can keep your goals completely to yourself and just let your actions speak for it. And the third, and probably the best way, is to choose specific people to set your goals. If you have a goal to be a musician, a successful musician, we're not going to say famous, we're just going to say successful. Because I have a friend that wants to do that. Be a successful musician, meaning I'd like to just pay the bills, I'd like to make a meaningful impact through my music, and I want to touch the world in a way that the world needs touched through my music. A lot of people would look at that, person that goes into the school guidance counselor and says that, the school guidance counselor is likely to say, get your head out of the clouds, let's come up with a curriculum, and we're going to figure out what college to send you to. Which isn't necessarily a bad thing, but what we want to keep in mind is that some people will try and pour water all over the fire of your dreams, and you want to make sure that that's not happening. You want to make sure that you are not letting anybody steal your dreams from you. And so by selectively choosing your goals, figure out the people, not only the people that will support you no matter what, but also in many ways the people who can help you get there because they've already been down the track. So I know people who are successful musicians who are making a good living in music. I run several of their websites for them, and I can take people like that and put them in connection with young artists trying to start out, just so they can figure out what are the steps that's going to help in that direction. And it's the same way of seeking mentors in other areas of your life. Your mentors should be people that you can share your goals with, and they can help you achieve your goals without compromising the rest of your future. So I don't want to forsake everything else. I don't want to forsake a good education. I don't want to forsake a good job for the purpose of writing music when it may not be profitable, but I want to help you figure out how you can write music to become profitable while you do not compromise an education or a good job in another place. And so you have to have that level of support for your goals. So that's kind of what they talk about in there. And then they go over setting up your master plan. And the master plan, and they actually provide an interesting picture here of a master plan back here. I got to find it. And I actually have one of these written down. I got to review it because, like I said, I haven't reviewed it for about 5 or 7 years or so. I forget whenever the last time was I read the book is the last time I did it. And so, yeah, I didn't do quite as good on some of it as I should have, but I did keep some things in alignment with goals very well. But part of their master plan is, some of their good advice here is, let's see, let me go back to that first part. So review your goals, make sure that your goals are, following those principles we just talked about. And then what they suggest here is this is a mental thinking exercise, but the mental thinking exercise is I want to go in and I want to write down on paper 100 things. I think they say 101. 101 things they say. But write down, if you could be anywhere, if you could do anything, if you could go anywhere, if you could have anything, if you could accomplish anything, what are those things that you would like to accomplish in your life? And write them down. And I remember one of the first times, because I did not come from a home that taught any of this type of stuff. I'm not like coming from this background that's like, we were great success motivators. I was like one of the first people in the entire even extended family line to go off to college. And I went to college, and the first day I'm in biology class, I think it was the second day of school total, or maybe it was the first, I just don't remember, but I go in, and the biology professor comes in, and there's just something about his presence to me that seemed like this is a guy who seems to have some things together. And and I looked at how he went about solving problems and things. I'm like, you know what? I think I'd like to get one of those PhD things. So I wrote it down. I finished my undergrad in 4 years. I skipped my master's. I went straight for my PhD. Actually, I finished the PhD faster than anyone else in my lab, too. I played politics there, but, that worked. But regardless, set down 101 goals so then you can start to think about what you want to prioritize to figure out. Create a picture goals book, and this is actually where the little far-fetched story lies, but it's better to write it all down and to have this. It's not like we don't want to. Some people might say, well, you don't want to do that in case your dreams don't come true. I promise you, if you start taking those proactive steps, something good is going to happen from it. You may look back and not achieve everything you want to achieve, but you will get to the point where you can at least achieve something that you want to achieve. And that really, in and of itself, is the important part. If the old adage is true, you can, within reason, of course, you can do anything. You just can't do everything. You know, you may not be a worldwide perfect, I don't know, I'm not even going to try to add an example to that. Using an ideas book. This is something that sometimes I'm good at and sometimes I'm not. I keep little composition books with me, little pocket-sized ones. Not always, not nearly as much as I should. But carrying around a little book like that and a little pen with you, Dr. Cornelius in Prince Caspian, a scholar is never without pen and ink. And, you know, so keeping a little notebook with you so that you can jot down ideas, jot down thoughts, whatever comes to mind, whether it be some interesting quote, maybe you've encountered something. In fact, John Adams, one of the presidents of the United States, like third, I think, he wrote to his father and said, if you would provide for me a blank book, I will provide for you the most, if you provide for me a blank book, I will provide for you the most amazing encounters I find in my reading. I believe is at least paraphrased what he said. But that is such a great quote. And if you come up with a great idea and you don't have any way to write that down, do it. And I think there's something about writing it down on paper and ink. In fact, the very first book that I wrote, I'm sitting in a church service and the pastor was stumbling over some words. And I got to thinking, is there really a difference between testing and between being tempted? Being tested and being tempted. Is there a difference in those words? Because he kept on stumbling over those. And so I flipped to the back of the notebook that I carry with me in church, and I wrote down 7 or 8 different principles. And those became the foundation for my book, Testing and Temptations. It all started as a wind block. All right, so I set a goal for that. And I think it ended up being, was it a year and 6 months, or maybe it was 2 years and 2 months? I forget exactly how long it was from the time I wrote those things down to the time that I actually published the book. It wasn't exactly the time I said, but it was a whole lot better than if I had no goal at all. But part of it was sitting down and just planning the time into my day, and that was really the core principle there. So use an ideas book is a fabulous thing. Visualize, think, reflect, and review. You know, if you want to be successful at music, then what's it going to take to become successful at doing music? And think about that. Wonder of those things. Jim Carrey, he wrote himself a check for $1 million, and he'd sit up on this high hill over Hollywood and read this check out to himself. And it was literally somewhere within a few months of the date on that check is when he signed his first contract for over that amount of money. And that was, I mean, you might say, oh, well, that's just one little weird example or a little coincidence. That's possible. But the fact that putting things into visualization is a very big motivator for you, and sitting down and going, what would it really be like to be successful in this thing I want to do, and figuring that out is a huge thing. And part of this is, of course, is thinking. The previous chapter talked a lot about thinking, or maybe it was this chapter, I forget, but planning time to think, planning time to do nothing but think. Sit in a thinking chair with a notebook, just think, plan time to just think. So you want to visualize your goals, think about your goals, reflect on your goals, and review your goals. All those things. Develop mentors and mastermind groups is what they talk about here. So this is single people or groups of people that can help you achieve it. Maybe or maybe not just somebody who is just a person who will help you along. I think that's more of a mentor. But really a mastermind group, or even in many cases a better instance of a mentor, is somebody who's already been down the road you are trying to go, because he can help you along that way and figure out those principles. So that is kind of their brief steps on setting a master plan and figuring out the goals and how to do all the goal setting in your life. So with that, sorry for the wind, but I did want to get a video out today. So with all that being said, thanks for watching, and I hope that you enjoy switching to Linux.